As of the date of publishing of this video, there is only one genetically modified seed available to home gardeners, the purple tomato. What are GMO seeds? What is the controversy behind them, and why does it matter to you? Let's talk about it. Welcome back to Garden Bound. What does a GMO, or genetically modified organism, really mean in the context of modern agriculture and gardening? Genetically modified organisms are those whose genetic material has been altered using genetic engineering techniques. Contrary to popular belief, this concept isn't just a product of contemporary science. It extends back to traditional breeding techniques, although today's methods are far more precise and targeted. The U.S. Department of Agriculture defines a GMO as any organism that has been altered genetically in ways that do not occur naturally by mating and/or natural recombination. It's crucial to distinguish between GMOs and genetically engineered, GE organisms, a subset of GMOs specifically designed in labs through the direct manipulation of DNA. A common misconception is that all hybrid plants are GMOs, which isn't accurate. Hybrids are the result of cross-pollinating two different plants, a practice that has been part of agriculture for centuries. In contrast, GMOs in the strict sense often involve inserting genes from one species into another to achieve desired traits, such as resistance to pests or herbicides. At the commercial agriculture level, this technology has been revolutionary. According to the International Service for the Acquisition of Agrobiotech Applications, as of 2020, 92% of the corn and 94% of the soybeans grown in the U.S. are genetically engineered for traits such as herbicide tolerance and insect resistance. However, it's essential to note that the landscape of GMOs in the home garden is markedly different, with regulatory and ethical considerations severely limiting the availability of GMO seeds to home gardeners. For practical perspective, let's consider the purple tomato, the sole GMO available for home gardening. This particular tomato has been engineered to contain higher levels of anthocyanins, antioxidants that are thought to offer health benefits. Not only does this modification potentially contribute to better health outcomes, but it's also designed to grow similarly to non-GMO tomatoes requiring the same soil, sunlight, and water. This means you can grow the purple tomato in your garden just as you would any heritage or non-GMO variety, but with the added benefit of enhanced nutritional value. From an environmental perspective, proponents argue that GMOs can lead to decreased pesticide use. For instance, the development of Bt corn, which is engineered to produce a bacterial toxin that is harmful to specific pests but not to humans or other animals, has significantly reduced the need for chemical insecticides. Research published by the National Academy of Sciences confirms that the adoption of genetically engineered crops has reduced pesticide use by 37% in the U.S. However, opponents express concerns about the long-term impacts of GMOs on biodiversity. The fear is that GMO crops, with their enhanced ability to resist pests and herbicides, could lead to homogenized crop ecosystems, potentially displacing wild varieties and reducing biodiversity. A study from the Journal of Environmental Science and Health highlights that gene flow from GMO crops to wild relatives could lead to hybrid species that might outcompete natural flora. In terms of health, supporters of GMO technology cite numerous studies, including those from the World Health Organization, which have found no substantiated evidence that GMO foods are less safe than their non-GMO counterparts. Furthermore, genetic engineering has enabled the fortification of crops with vital nutrients. An example is golden rice, enriched with beta-carotene to combat vitamin A deficiency in developing countries. Conversely, there remains a segment of the public and scientific community concerned about allergenicity and the hypothetical risks that GMOs might pose to human health. Critics argue that the safety testing of GMOs for human consumption is not rigorous enough, citing a need for more comprehensive long-term studies to fully understand the potential health impacts. Ethically, the debate often centers around corporate control over the food supply. Major agricultural corporations that patent GMO technology can exercise significant control over what crops are planted and how they are cultivated, which some argue limits farmer autonomy and consumer choice. This control is seen by some as a move away from traditional farming practices towards a more industrialized, less transparent food production system. One of the most pervasive myths is that genetically modified organisms are omnipresent in all forms of farming, infiltrating every part of our food system. However, the reality is quite different, especially for home gardeners. Firstly, it's important to recognize that the presence of GMOs in commercial agriculture is substantial but not universal. For instance, while it's true that crops like soy, corn, and cotton have high percentages of genetically modified variants in the US, this is predominantly in commercial, large-scale agricultural settings. According to the US Department of Agriculture, 92% of corn and 94% of soy grown in the US are genetically modified. These crops are primarily used in processed foods, animal feed, and industrial products. In contrast, the garden vegetables that most home gardeners are familiar with, such as tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers, have not been commercially developed as GMOs available to the public. This distinction is critical because it underscores that the seeds available to home gardeners remain largely unaffected by genetic modification. The genetic alterations found in some commercial crops are targeted at solving large-scale agricultural problems, such as pest resistance or herbicide tolerance, which are less pertinent to small-scale residential gardens. Furthermore, it's worth noting that the only genetically modified seeds available for home gardeners involve the purple tomato, engineered for higher antioxidant content. This is a recent development and represents a very small fraction of the vast variety of seeds available to gardeners. This clarification is vital because it helps to alleviate unwarranted concerns among home gardeners about the unintentional cultivation of GMO plants. Most seeds and plants available at your local garden center or through catalogs are not genetically engineered and are safe for traditional gardening practices. When considering the cultivation of GMOs, it's crucial to understand the stringent regulations that govern these crops. These regulations ensure that genetically modified crops undergo rigorous assessments before they can be commercialized. In the United States, 3 major federal agencies are involved in the regulation of GMOs: the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, and the Food and Drug Administration, FDA. Each of these bodies has a specific role in ensuring that GMOs are safe for the environment, agriculture, and human health. The EPA evaluates GMOs to ensure they do not harm the environment, focusing on issues such as potential effects on non-target organisms or the development of resistance in pests. The USDA assesses potential impacts on agriculture, checking for risks such as gene transfer to non-GMO crops or other plants. Meanwhile, the FDA handles the food safety aspects of GMOs, ensuring that genetically modified foods are safe for consumption and properly labeled. Despite these rigorous checks and balances, the availability of GMO seeds for home gardeners remains extremely limited. As of now, the purple tomato is the only genetically modified seed available to them. This particular tomato has been engineered to contain higher levels of anthocyanins, compounds believed to have antioxidant properties. The development of this tomato was aimed at enhancing its nutritional value rather than addressing agricultural issues like pest or herbicide resistance. The purple tomato serves as a rare exception in a market where GMO seeds are predominantly aimed at large-scale commercial farming. This is largely due to the high costs and extensive regulatory hurdles associated with bringing a GMO crop to market, which are prohibitive for crops intended for small-scale use, such as home gardening. If you're interested in the purple tomato, it's important to note that while it offers enhanced nutritional benefits, it comes with the same cultivation requirements as non-GMO tomatoes. Gardeners should follow the same practices for planting, growing, and caring for these tomatoes as they would with any other variety. Understanding these regulatory frameworks and the limited availability of GMO seeds can help gardeners make informed decisions about the types of seeds they choose to plant in their gardens, ensuring that they are both safe and in line with their gardening goals. Growing genetically modified GMO seeds in a home garden isn't inherently negative. The evaluation depends significantly on individual perspectives, environmental considerations, and the specific traits of the GMO involved. One of the primary concerns about GMO crops is their potential to lead to reduced biodiversity. These crops are often designed for high efficiency and robustness, which may outcompete native species, leading to a decrease in ecosystem diversity, especially if GMO plants cross-pollinate with wild relatives. There is also a risk that the modified genes of GMO plants could unintentionally transfer to non-target species, potentially causing unintended changes in other plants. This horizontal gene transfer could create superweeds that are resistant to herbicides, necessitating the use of stronger chemicals to control them. Additionally, many GMO crops are tailored to be used with specific herbicides, such as glyphosate. This relationship can create a dependency cycle that may be hard to break, potentially resulting in increased chemical runoff into water sources, adversely affecting aquatic life and water quality. On the other hand, some GMO crops naturally resist pests, potentially reducing the amount of pesticides needed. This reduction benefits the environment by decreasing pesticide runoff into rivers and streams and reducing wildlife and human exposure to these chemicals. GMO crops can also be engineered to use water and nutrients more efficiently, which is particularly beneficial in regions suffering from water scarcity and can lead to less strain on natural resources. Furthermore, GMO crops often produce higher yields from the same amount of land due to their enhanced resistance to diseases and pests. This efficiency can reduce the need to clear additional land for agriculture, thus conserving natural habitats and curtailing deforestation. Some GMOs are designed to offer greater nutritional value, potentially enhancing human health without additional environmental costs. Opponents of GMO technology express concerns about the long-term impacts on biodiversity and the potential for genetically modified genes to flow to wild relatives. This could potentially disrupt local ecosystems and reduce genetic diversity among plant species. Moreover, the ethical debate extends to the control exerted by corporations over seeds, which could hinder traditional farming practices and limit gardeners' choices. Proponents argue that GMOs can lead to decreased pesticide use and higher crop yields, which are beneficial for feeding a growing global population. For instance, Bt corn engineered to produce a bacterial toxin, harmful only to specific pests, has significantly reduced the need for chemical insecticides, as confirmed by research from the National Academy of Sciences. It's essential for home gardeners to make informed decisions about the seeds they choose, understanding both the scientific and ethical implications. As we continue to explore innovations like the purple tomato, it is our responsibility to weigh these advancements against the preservation of traditional practices and the autonomy of our gardening. What do you think about GMO seeds? Let us know in the comments. And as always, until next time, happy gardening.